So yeah, basically we're going to be building a Notion CRM live. This is also pretty much unscripted as well. You'll see here, this is a fresh new Notion account. So there's absolutely nothing in here other than this landing page basically. So we're going to be building this completely from scratch. So that also means I'm going to need your guys' help through this too. So please, as we're doing this, if you guys have any thoughts or comments or whatever, I'll check the meeting chat, or also feel free to unmute yourself as well. And then the other thing too is, if you haven't used Notion before, apologies, because it's going to be probably a lot will go over your head. This is not really meant to be like a intro to Notion per se. It's more about, we're just going to jump straight into it, to be honest, and maybe pick up some tips if you already use it. Or if you don't use it, this will be recorded so you can watch it back. Or I guess the thinking behind this could also be applied to other platforms or low code things or whatever it may be. So yeah, we'll hopefully it makes sense if you use Notion. I'm also going to go pretty fast too, I think. So some things you might understand, some things you won't. Yeah, you can always watch the recording back. So yeah, basically, I think we're going to jump straight in. So let's start building this CRM. So I think the very first thing you should do with any Notion build is, and I guess the most powerful thing about Notion is the database function. So a lot of people use Notion and just like use the pages or notes, whatever it may be, and that's fine. It's okay as like a note-taking software, I guess. But the real power of Notion is databases. And if you want to use Notion, I guess, to its full potential, every single thing in your Notion should be in a database, basically. So, and I guess good practice with Notion databases too, I'm just going to create an empty page here, is you want to keep them separate. So I'll pick some icons and things here. So all the database we're going to create, they're going to be in their own little section here, and then we're going to link to them. And the reason for that is, one thing I'm not amazing at with Notion is I'm not really amazing at using like larger teams and stuff, and that's the issue with some of these low-code apps like Airtable and Notion is the permissioning can be pretty can be not amazing. It's hard to, if you have a database, you usually have to share like the whole database. It can be hard to only share certain records or entries in a database. And then on that, why you want to keep these in their own location is you might want to, if this is a team, you only you as the admin have access to this. And the other thing too is when we create these databases, you can't accidentally delete them. So we're going to create databases and then basically link to views of them. So if you delete something by accident, the master databases are already here. Hope that makes sense. So yeah, so the first thing we're going to create is we're going to create this, we're going to create a company's database. So this is like sort of the starting point, and we're going to build this as if it was like a flat spreadsheet. So you can do either inline or full page. I'll just do inline for now. We'll call it companies. And then what you want to do is you want to then turn this into a page. And now we have this sort of, I guess, companies database underneath the databases main page here. Again, I'm not amazing at Notion aesthetics, but I do like to have little logos and stuff. You can make Notion look pretty cool, to be honest, but I'll just do some basic aesthetics stuff. Little briefcase here for my company's database. And then let's start, actually another small aesthetic thing before we jump into making this database is this templates function, which we're going to come back to later on as well. But you can make a template here to, for example, all I'm going to do here, again, this is purely aesthetics, so bear with me, is we're going to have this template where if we make a new page, it already has this little briefcase icon, which will look nice. You'll see as we start doing things, it looks, again, it looks aesthetically pleasing, I guess. Then we want to set this as the default for all views. And then if I create a new company here, test, it's going to have our little, our little logo here. So again, just, yeah, something small there. So yeah, this is basically how like if we're just like one database, we're basically using a spreadsheet here. This is what Google Sheets or Excel can do. And as we start building this out, we're going to run into some errors or some, I guess, limitations that can happen if you're just trying to build a CRM in a flat spreadsheet. So we'll just add some fields. Let's do, where's a website URL? We'll just do like, website as one. Website here. We might have some things like, some single select fields. Oh, yeah, where's single select? Single select, what's it called? Select in this one. Select, so we might have things in here like, we might call this state, and we can have options so we can, filter these companies by state. So we can have, if I can get to it, Vic, Queensland, WA, New South Wales as an example. So we can start, entering this data for our companies here. We can also then have things like, we might have type, for example. So we might have, again, I'm going to do this from the perspective of a allied health company, let's say. So you might have NDIS, aged care, GP. You might have other allied health practices, for example, in your sort of company's database. And this is, the basics of a company database. We might have, for example, I'm going to use Estes Health as an example. They're, based in WA, can't be bothered doing your website, sorry, Liam. They're an allied health company, for example. And then these sort of next two fields that would commonly be in a spreadsheet are where like spreadsheets start to fall apart. So if you're trying to build this in a Google Doc or Google Sheet or whatever is, often what would be next here is like just a text field, and you might have like contact info, for example. And then you might have, Liam at esteshealth.com, Nam, Nick, for example. And then this is where we can't really use this data, right? This is just like a free text field. If we want to, if we had 50 companies here, we can't easily copy everyone's emails, for example. We start to run into some issues here. So we're going to solve this. I'm going to delete this, and we're going to solve that one in a second. The other thing you often see in like flat, spreadsheet-based CRM type things is another text field. You might have like comments here. And I think it's useful. I think you can, in these databases, still have like a description or some free text field for whatever it may be. But what might happen is people might have like, 14th of the 1st, contacted, 27th of the 1st, follow-up sent, things like that. Again, this is fine. It might work for some people, but then if you have this huge record or multiple years of entries in a CRM, it just gets completely messy. So we're going to delete this too. We're going to solve the contacts one in a second. But for the comments, again, this is where platforms like Notion, Airtable, proper actual CRMs are really good, is if you open up, this Estes Health, like this, I guess this entry in this database is an actual page itself, and you can add whatever you want down here. You could even have a template, which we'll get into a little bit later on. But this is where you can add comments, for example. So you can say like, sent email, sent cold DM, and this is all like, this is all basically, there's comments on this record. You can see little, things here. And then the cool thing with platforms like this too is you can also tag other people. So if you're using Notion with other people, rather than me, sending one of my colleagues an email or a Teams message or a text message about something about this company or about something in Notion, you can just tag them. So I could say there's no one on here, but Ange, who's my bookkeeper, for example, please invoice, Liam for $1 million or something like that. And then that record is here. So then in 3 years' time, if you need to come back, you can see, I don't know how long they last in Notion, but you can see your comments and records on everything. So this is basically, with my old company, is what we used to do before Splos and stuff existed. We had Airtable with like 10,000 participants, comments and all their records type thing. It's like the admin side, and then the clinicians had their own thing. So anyway, that resolves the comments. We're going to come back to a solution for, let's set up the solution now for how can we have multiple contacts in one company. So we need another database for this. And this is where we're going like sort of, three-dimensional here, where we're going outside the possibility of a spreadsheet. So we're going to start linking things. This is the power of platforms like Notion and databases. You can link them together. We're going to do like one-to-one sort of way now, and then we're going to get real complex. We're going to even go the level above that in a second. So let's make our contacts database here now. I'll just go inline contacts. I'll turn this into a full page. Let me add my little person thing here. And contacts database, this is where we can add some, we can add some actual useful information here. So we can add email. We might add, these are individual people. So we might add phone. We can, and then the other thing I guess we can add with this too is we can add statuses. This can be useful to have. So I think the thing with databases in general is you never want to delete things. You should always just archive them instead with filters and all sorts of stuff, which we'll look at quickly. But like I'll set some statuses for these contacts. Pretty simple. I can add I can add an option active, inactive, for example. And I think you can change I think there's like some default option or something. Don't know. There's something. There's somewhere in here we can make it the default property. I don't know where to find it though. So let's start adding in some people here. We'll add Liam. I'm using Estes as our example here. Liam, Nick, and Nam. Pretend they have information in here. They're all active. Sorry, not Nam, name. And then if we had someone else, for example, one of his former staff members, Grumpy Dave, who was a former staff member, he's inactive at this company. We're going to link him into in a second. What you want to do, again, we'll do some actual proper views and stuff as well, is you might want to then just filter out and only show the active ones. So Grumpy Dave's still in there somewhere. He's just, if you had comments on there or you had a history with him, you're not just deleting him when he's gone. He's just archived somewhere. And then potentially another option for this too, what I have in my Notion, for example, is I just have this, in my navigation bar over here, I have this sort of archive page here with a little, I think there's a bin icon. And you can always, if you don't know what to do with something, like it's a crappy database or whatever, you can always just drag it over to archive, and it's gone, but at least you can, you can search for it if you have to. NAM's still there under archive somewhere. All right, so we've got the basics. Let me find NAM back. Yeah, NAM, you come back here. We've got the basics of our contact database with some, emails here and phone numbers. All right, so this is probably the most important part of this entire call here. This next bit we're going to do is we're going to start linking these databases together. So again, this is the power of databases, basically. So we want to go to this relation type over here. We're going to link this contacts database to companies. It's a two-way relation, so it goes both way, and just the default is totally fine. And now we can start linking these contacts into their company, basically. So you can say, Liam, Nick. I forgot to actually quickly. Sorry, I forgot to do my little person emoji here. It's that is annoying for me. I want to make this my default. Yeah. So yeah, basically these guys should all have the little, bear with me. I don't like when it's not. Maybe there's OCD or something. We've got our little people over here, and they're all linked to Estes Health, for example. So you can always filter through here to look at who works at Estes Health. And then if we go back to our company's database, you can see Estes Health has 3 contacts, for example. And this, again, you can't do this in a flat spreadsheet, and you can do all sorts of things. You can do I think there's like a lookup field or something in here, roll ups, all sorts of things where you can start looking up things from these linked things here. But it's basically we've gone 3-dimensional now. You can have one company, multiple contacts, which you can't do in a flat spreadsheet. The other thing you can do too, let's say, I'll just call this Sunnyvale Aged Care as an example. They're a aged care company. Is you can have one contact who works at multiple companies. So now if we back to Liam's, database, the contacts database, Liam works at 2 companies, which, again, probably irrelevant for, let's say, small allied health companies. But for me, for example, I use everything we're going through now. I use in my consulting Notion. This is relevant for me because I have people who work at multiple different companies. One person who works at multiple companies, multiple companies, with multiple people and all sorts of things. So you can start getting this really powerful and having this big database that you can easily filter through and sort through. Any questions or comments so far? I think, oh, here we go. Dave is gone. Yeah, just reading the comments. Yeah, no, all good. I'm not, I need to read my comments as I go. If I want to be a proper Twitch streamer or something one day. So yeah, basically, if you set something like this up, you're already a level above, just what having this in a spreadsheet, because then you can filter through. You might have loads of different companies across multiple different areas. So you can just filter for, I want to filter for my, everyone in WA, or I want to filter through all my allied health, for example, or all the, let's call this, I'll call it Bulleen Medical Clinic, somewhere near me, Vic, GP, for example. You can start filtering through things like this. And again, it might be overkill for like a sole trader or something like that, maybe not. But I think it can be very useful because, I think in allied health, for example, what I've found across my journey is that most people don't leverage their data that they have. If it's support coordinators, contacts, referrers, families, whatever it may be, there's data like sitting in Sploce or something that no one's using. So if you can leverage that data somehow, you're going to be ahead of pretty much all your competition because no one's using their data. And with data, it all needs to be categorized and organized, I guess, to a database software. Notion, Airtable, other stuff, whatever is phenomenal for it. I thought before we go, the thing we're going to go into next after this is kind of like, we're going to take it to the next level and get even more confusing, to be honest. I will say Notion also has this AI function, which I'm going to be honest, I've never actually even used. So I think you can use Notion to like build stuff like this if you want. But yeah, I guess the purpose of this webinar is we're doing this sort of old school, quote unquote. We're doing it all one by one, so you know the process behind it. And then, yeah, I don't know, maybe you can use this. But yeah, maybe I'm old, so I've never even used this thing down here, to be honest. So keen, I think, yeah, there's a few people out there who do use it a lot, so I'm keen to potentially learn as well.
As someone who has never touched a CRM within this business and is wanting to start up some of the community of practice and newsletter sort of stuff, this is incredible, Kristen. This is absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
and has simplified so much.
That's awesome. Yeah, the thing is too, yeah, if you're a entrepreneur or sole trader or whatever it may be, and you have a few different benches and things going on, it can be hard to. You can't use Sploce for everything or a spreadsheet or whatever. Like this is where you can start. Again, we're very, very basic for now, but you can have a dashboard for just podcasts or a dashboard just for clinical stuff or whatever it may be. You can, again, the cool thing with Notion is you can do anything on here basically. You could also, I would love to, I think you could almost even replace something like Sploce, to be honest, if you really wanted to. We're gonna go there. But yeah, it's very, very powerful.
It's really just the permissions that you'd really need to worry about with that, isn't it? But even then, the permissions in Sploce are terrible.
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, permissions, and again, it's only me and my bookkeeper, my wife, who have access to my Notion. But yeah, if you have 20 people on Notion, the permissions can get a bit. It's possible. It's just there's a few workarounds and things. All right. The other thing, quickly before we go into this, the third layer on top of this, which can be cool, is you can also change like the layout of these pages too. So if I open up this Estes Health page, again, this might be useful, is you can sort of customize this layout. And again, this can be useful if you have like 500 people, 500 contacts, 1,000, 500 companies, 1,000 contacts, and that sort of thing. And then we can customize the layout. I'll answer a couple of questions in a second too. So we can go, what I do with my companies on my Notion, for example, is I go to this tabbed layout here. And then I'll add like the contacts as another tab up here. And I'll hide this one here. Always hide, for example. And if we apply this to all pages, you can then see if we open up, the Estes Health record, for example, you go to this contacts tab here, you can kind of see like a list of all of them within the company page, I guess. Let me just have a look at a couple of questions. Big improvement on spreadsheets. How is this approach beneficial compared to established CRM platforms? I think the benefit is in our sector, like allied health, very, very small, like lots of small companies, is like a CRM like HubSpot or Pipedrive or Salesforce or whatever. I think it's super overwhelming. Like there's so many functions and fields and features that we just don't need. So if you're big, let's say, I don't know, 5 mil, 10 mil revenue, whatever, like it's probably worth using something off the shelf. But I think this is good because It's fully modular. Again, it takes a while to set up, but it kind of does. It's going to do more than just CRM. You can do sort of whatever you want, which we'll look at. And then I think the other thing too is it's free. So again, I'm doing this all on the free Notion. Like I'm not paying for any of this, right? So again, if you have to pay if you have a few staff members and that sort of thing. But like HubSpot is free to a point, and then it just gets out of control with some of the stuff they want. So again, this is definitely not for everyone. You need to be, have some kind of tech savviness, I guess, to do this, or someone like me can help. But it can do whatever you want. It can fit your business, and I think that's an issue in allied health as well. Where, like, for example, Splos, it's fine. Like it's the best one out. That's what I recommend. But like it doesn't work for every business because it's not really modular at all. You can't really change much. So again, that's a whole separate conversation of like running like Notion alongside Splos, which pretty much every allied health business I come across does. You have your PMS, then you have a duplicate database, usually an insane spreadsheet with like 500 fields and like I've seen some hairy ones, to be honest. So yeah, I guess to summarize, just cheaper, modular, and I don't know, fun. Like, you can sort of do whatever you want with it. Pretty much exactly what Nathan said. All right, so again, you can customize these pages. You can make them look nice. You can do all sorts of cool things in here to, make them look like you want. You can do templates and stuff too, which we'll get to when we talk about like meeting notes, for example, which is what I use Notion for. So again, this setup will work for most people where you have companies, you have contacts. That's totally fine. Where you run into issues with this is if you want to do like follow-up dates, for example, you want to track where like things are in a pipeline or where partnerships are at, or you want to track like a branch of a hospital or like a particular state branch or group of people, whatever it may be. This can be really hard to do because then you're like, well, am I tracking things in the company's database or am I tracking things at the contact level? And again, for a lot of businesses, that's totally fine. That's all you need. You just care about contacts. I only care about support coordinators, or I only care about companies. I only care about aged care providers, for example. So I just have my aged care providers in here. I have all my stuff in here. But if you work across multiple areas and do a bunch of different things, and what pretty much I think what all CRMs have is they have a third layer on top of this. And again, this is where we get a bit confusing. There's no right or wrong answer with a lot of this stuff, because it can get tricky. You have a third database, which it can be called multiple things. It's called deals, partnerships, referrers, something like that, where you can have, we're going to get into it, where you can have like, I call it deals in my database, where you can have a deal that has multiple contacts or multiple companies, or only certain contacts from a company, for example. So again, this is where we start getting confusing, to be honest. So again, I'll do my best, but let's create this new deals database here. What do I use for this? Let's call it, is there a money sign? Yeah, money, deal sign. So this, again, Salesforce, Pipedrive, HubSpot, all that sort of thing, they have this database, they have this third layer here. So we won't add anything in here yet. This is where we start adding in properties, for example. So this is where we're going to link these deals to, we're going to link it to companies. Two-way, add this in. And then we're going to link it to contacts as well. So then I can have a deal, I might say, let's just call it, training course, or training, I'll call it leadership workshop. And it is for Esther's Health. And the contact for this is just Liam. I'm not talking to Nick and Nam about it, for example. It's just Liam's my contact for this deal. So, and again, then we could have multiple deals for the one company, for example. So I could be doing, and again, if it's like a massive not-for-profit or some big company, whatever it may be, and this is common for me, I might have like a project with them, I might have a retainer with them, or I might do mentoring for someone, that type of thing. I have multiple different things going on with one company or person, So I need this third level database. So let's say there's a leadership workshop, and then there's also some, mentoring with, I'm doing mentoring with Nam from Esther's Health, for example. So again, we have this sort of multiple deals and things to track for one company, one person, multiple of each, if that makes sense. So we have those ones. What you can also then attach to this is you can attach a value. So this is what I do for all my deals is I have a dollar value attached to all of them. And this is what like HubSpot and things do as well is if you have a deal, you attach what it's worth so you know what to prioritize. Or you could do, if you're an allied health company, you might do like number of referrals per month or something like that. I don't know, just something to visualize what this deal is worth so I know what to do. Again, you might not need this, it might be overkill, but this is what a lot of CRMs do. So where's how do I bloody search in here? Where's my money? I think I just need to do number maybe. Number, and then can I change it to I don't know. I think there's money in here somewhere. Anyway, let's just say we'll say dollars, and I'll say this is worth $2,000. This is worth $300 as an example. That's an option. You can also then we might want to filter these by type, for example. So I can I could say here we go type of deal, and I might say again this is for me, but I do like mentoring, retainer, project as an example in the context of an allied health company. I'll just delete this. Is you might do again. You might have types as I don't know. Again, same kind of thing. This is where it can get confusing if you are using this in allied health context. You might have your types in here as NDIS or aged care or something like that to track the different types of referrers. Again, this you can sort of do whatever you want in here. I'm just going to do my ones because that makes sense to me. And again, you can probably do similar to how do I delete this? Delete and delete this one. So yeah, these are some different types of deals. So then you can sort of filter through these as well. So let's say this is this is a project. This is mentoring, something like that. And then the other thing with this too is then we can add things like follow-up dates, which we're going to create a few different views and things like that too. This is where you can track, or you might even do something like, again, you can do some fancy formulas. You might have here like a frequency, for example, in terms of if you're using this for lead tracking and things like that. We might want for all the guys we're going to get to the pipeline in a second. I want to follow up with them I want to follow up with them fortnightly or monthly or something like that. So again, you can, frequency of follow-ups you could have in here if you wanted to. I'll just delete this for now. It's just an idea. But yeah, we will do date here, and we'll call this follow-up date, for example. So this is just saying we do manually. So for these deals which may or may not be closed, here's my follow-up dates over here. I'm going to follow up 15th for that one, 21st for that one. All right, and then maybe the most important column in this deal stage, we're going to look at this in a second, is this, we want to make a status. And there's an actual status thing here, but I use this as status. So this is basically what our pipeline is going to look like. And we'll see a pipeline view in a second. So we're going to define some pipeline stages, and you can basically track for all your deals, where are they all up to? So again, I do this for all my consulting clients, for example. You can do the same for all your referrers. I might do an allied health example here. So we might say identified, cold outreach, engaged, referrer, top referrer, closed, you'll say closed, and then nurture. This will make, I'll explain this as we go on. This will make sense when we start filling this out. So before we do this, I might just add some, I think we have a few people here. I just want to pad this out a little bit with some, Bulleen Medical Center. We'll call this, we'll call it Macca's, I don't know, as an example. Just trying to think. And we'll go, Ronald works there. There we go. Ronald from Macca's. Macca's is a allied health company. They care a lot about health. All right. So with this status field, what we want to do with this, which again, you can filter through by this. pardon me, is we want to create a new view up here. We want to create a board view, and this gives you like a dashboard or a Kanban or whatever it may be. Again, there's a million other views which can be pretty cool. We'll do board in a second, but map can be cool too. If you were mapping out all the GP clinics in your area, if you put the address, so if I do I think it's called location here, map address. Where is it? I don't know. There's some kind of location place. Here it is, place. God. So if I say, if I map out the 10 GP clinics in my area and then create a map view, you can see them all on a map, which is pretty cool. So there's loads of cool views and stuff. But we're going to create this board view here so we can track where all these deals are at in a pipeline. So let's go board view here. I want to, how do I change this layout? I want to show all the cards. How do I show all of them? Sorry, I need to remember how to do some of this stuff. Can I remember how to show all the statuses, even empty ones? There's like a way to do it somehow. I'll not property visibility. Not that one. Show page icon, card size. I don't know. Anyway, where bloody is it? Well, let me, to work around this, I'm just going to make a bunch of deals that have all the statuses, so it actually shows them all, and we can work around it. Top referrer, cold outreach, engage, identified. We'll just call this deal 2, deal 3, deal 4, deal 5. All right. Oh, sorry, I know why. Ignore me. It's because I'm sorting by, where is it? I'm grouping by the wrong field. I'm meant to be grouping by the status field. Okay, cool. And let's change this visibility to, let's change this layout to, I want these cards to be, we'll just go small so it sort of all fits on here. And let's change the order too, so this pipeline actually makes sense. So we have identified, cold outreach, engaged, referrer, top referrer, closed, and nurture as an example. And let's show some properties. I want to show the name. I also want to show the companies, contacts, follow-up date as an example. So then what we have here is we have this, all this data that's in our table over here. We have a sort of a pipeline view of it, and I can add, a new deal in here. So we'll pick, Macca's. They want some, EAP as an example. Macca's and Ronald McDonald. I've identified them as a potential. I'm going to offer some EAP to them, and it's a, let me add this property as well. Property visibility. Let's add the, what is it? Select this type one here. Type. Macca's, and that is a, this is a project, for example. So then you can sort of track this along the pipeline stage, and then I'll add follow-up date too, 15th. So, I've identified Macca's as a potential to offer some EAP services. This is basically Trello. Again, Trello, all those project management softwares. Notion can kind of do it as well. Basically we've identified, Macca's as for an EAP project as an example, or I might say, I'll just call it workshop as an example. You then can track it along sort of the pipeline stage. So, I've done some cold outreach. I'm going to follow up next week now. They're engaged now. Great. We're doing some meetings, whatever it may be. Now they're actually referring to me type thing. And then you sort of have this kind of like dashboard or pipeline view of where are all my deals, where are all my deals or referrers or partnerships or whatever you want to call it, where are they all at, in this pipeline. So you can see, here's all the cold outreach guys. Here are my top referrers. So when it comes to things like account management and stuff, you want to, with your referrers, you might follow up with them. If they're an active referrer, that's great, but you still might want to do something with them once a quarter, whatever it may be. Your top referrers, you might be following up with once a month or something like that. Closed just means it didn't eventuate for whatever reason. So you did some cold outreach, you're engaged, you're going back and forth. They went with someone else. You'd move that to close, but it's still it's still there because you might follow up on that in, in a few months' time, for example, just to, hey, remember that workshop? Do you still want it? Type thing. Again, the thing with this database is building up all of this. So it's all there basically. So, with me, my consulting, every single person who's ever booked in for a strategy call or whatever it may be, they're all there. So I can leverage that database if I wanted to. And then nurture, same kind of thing. Nurture is basically, again, and this is a longer and side conversation, but all this, all these cadences and strategies for doing all this outreach and things like this. The nurture is like basically you've tried to do cold outreach with someone, let's say it's an aged care provider you want to do some work with. You got absolute donuts. You followed up with them for a week. You follow up with them weekly for 4 weeks. Absolutely no luck at all. You move them to this nurture list, and you still, if they're a lead that is worth following up with, you follow up with nurture means like follow up with them once a quarter or something like that. So again, I do this with all my consulting clients, where I might have a call with someone. I follow up a few times. They're not interested. I'll follow up again every 3 months after that. And I've converted a lot of clients who booked in March last year, and then after 6 months, they're ready to go type thing. So you should do the same thing with support coordinators, aged care providers, whatever, whatever leads you're sort of tracking in your business. Let me just, I said I wouldn't do this. Yeah, I won't delete these fake ones. I'll chuck them in archived as an example. So yeah, I guess the challenge with this third database is figuring out what you actually want to call it and how it works for you. And again, it might be unnecessary for your business because you just care about support coordinators. That's fine. Or you only just care about aged care companies. That's also fine too. But yeah, if you need this third level, it does get confusing because there is sometimes a bit of duplication, and it's like, well, yeah, again, it's where do I put the type, or where do I put the, if there's multiple companies, how does it work? That type of thing. It can be a bit confusing. But does anyone have any questions or comments on this sort of deals or partnerships database?
No, this is actually really awesome for the nurturing side of things. I've been in allied health for a few years now, and not everyone is ready to send a referral right now. Sometimes you just need to be having that sort of awareness that like we are accepting referrals, or these are the type of people that we're actually accepting referrals for, and keep nurturing those relationships of the potential referrers being able to send it through. So that's really interesting of the nurturing side of things.
Yeah.
And how we actually follow up with it. That's really, really cool.
Thanks, Liam. And yeah, it's something that allied health, clinicians and companies are absolutely awful at, is like follow-ups and nurtures and things like that. Like usually, for example, you have a founder of an allied health company, they'll go to a Ready, Set, Connect or a networking event. They'll get some business cards. They'll send out a follow-up email the day after, and they're like, oh, my job's done. Like, well, they never got back to me type thing. Whereas, again, I don't know what the stats are, but I think most deals get done on like the third follow-up or something like that. So yeah, follow-ups, tracking, databases, it's all absolutely key. Again, I think a lot of it's kind of been unnecessary a bit in allied health, for example. If you were an OT, a good OT or whatever, organic growth was, totally fine the last few years. Whereas I think with where we're heading, things are only becoming more competitive, right? So clinicians, companies who use data and databases and account management and nurture, either, leads or active referrers, all that sort of thing. Like, it goes a long way. And this is what all big companies do, right? Like this is what my old company was doing. We're doing all this sort of stuff. We're account managing and tracking everyone.
And this is also where I think OTs are probably behind the game between psychs and physios. Like they've already spent years of nurturing the relationships with the GPs. OTs just aren't on that level just yet for a lot of them. So this is something that I'm thinking about a lot for the next year when we move into driving OT, and the GP referrals and those sort of relationships, completely different to the current things that we're doing with support coordinators. So yeah, this is really, really cool.
Yeah. Thanks, Liam. And yeah, a company like Kieser, probably the biggest, most successful like juggernaut private practice physio. Like they're doing all stuff like this. I think they call it like the pipeline or flywheel or something, where like every single person who refers is getting followed up with. Everyone's on every GP clinic gets a check-in call or whatever it may be. Like all this stuff. And the good thing with all this is it can all be systemized too. So again, if you're small or a fan, you kind of got to do it at the start. But if you systemize it all and it's tracked and when I set up CRMs for a few clients and things, we have like all the cadences and follow-ups and guides and templates in Notion, which we'll look at in a second, setting up some dashboards and things like that too. But it can all be systemized.
Sorry, Tristan, I find this to be a very powerful slide that just gives the business status at a glance. I'm just wondering, do you have to come back to this and view it manually, or does this generate notifications for you, and if it's been a period of time before you've reached out to one of the companies?
Yeah, this is all manual for now. Like, again, we're going to set up a dashboard if we have time quickly. We'll set up a dashboard quickly after this. You can set up automations, which I need to pay for it, so I can't do it on this one, which I don't bother with for me because it's just me. So I just check. Again, I'm looking at my Notion dashboard literally all day, every day. Where automations can be very useful are a bigger company. So again, I had 300 clinicians. I had automations going bloody everywhere for everything, like automatic reminders. So again, this might be the founder or the admin team use this, and then the team leader of that region who manages all the support coordinators gets a reminder to, hey, go catch up. You need to catch up with so and so, for example. So yeah, Notion is very, very, very modular. It sort of won't do anything unless you tell it to, which is that if you use an off-the-shelf CRM, it's going to automatically do stuff. So yeah, you just need to set up your own, which I can't do here. If you want to, you can set up your own automations. Otherwise, we're going to do a dashboard where you can like track when your follow-ups and stuff are due. But yeah, good question.
So yeah, that wouldn't really be necessary for like me in that like 3 to 10 clinician sort of range. Like it wouldn't be active enough. But even then, Notion's not that expensive, is it?
Nah, like I think I pay for I don't even use the premium features, but I think it's like $15 a month or something, or US maybe, I don't know. It's pretty cheap. But yeah, I think I love automations and tech and stuff as much as anyone. Sometimes you can like over automate things. You're just better off just checking or having a task to check something or whatever. The other quick view you can do, which can be useful here, is like if you have a follow-up date field, is you can like create a calendar of like when all your follow-ups are due. I think you can even like if you use Gmail, Notion like syncs really well with Gmail, which I don't use, so sucks for me. I'm on Teams on this call. But yeah, you can like sync these like follow-ups to your to a calendar as well, or view them on a calendar, which we'll look at in a second. So these are like the 3 key databases for a CRM. Again, you can get away with just companies and contacts if you want to. There's some other databases that I use, which can be very useful, that can be linked to things like this too. Lauren, N8N, N8N, Zapier, things like that. They're pretty awesome. So again, if you have lots of staff, they can be phenomenal. They can save you so much time. But as a solo entrepreneur or small team, whatever, I think it's a bit useless. A bit overkill. But yeah, let's quickly make a few more databases which I find useful. So I like one database which can be useful, which I use a lot, is meeting notes, for example. Let me turn this into a page. So every meeting I have with anyone, it's always a meeting note in my Notion. Again, I think they have their own meetings function here, which I don't use. I use my own. I just make my own. So let's, is there a book? Let's go, this book as an example, meeting notes. And then you might have meeting notes linked to here's this relation. You might have meeting notes linked to a contact, for example. So again, this is exactly what I do. Every time I meet with someone, I will always link it to a contact. So I've met with Grumpy Dave. I've met with, Ron here, for example. I need to change Grumpy Dave's icon. That's annoying me. Sorry. And then with what I do with my meeting notes, for example, this is where templates get really useful. Is I have a template for all my meetings basically, and I'll show you guys the one I use. So this is basically, it's pretty simple. This is a template I use for all my meetings. I create 2 columns. On this left-hand column, I put like agenda, perspective, comments, a summary of our last meeting, whatever it may be. I then have this. I have questions that I fill out. Whoops. Let me leave that there. I have questions, I have notes, and then I'll make my dot point there. And then I'll have actions and things to do afterwards. Again, this is pretty basic. If you had a task database, you could even link it here and create tasks in your database if you want to. But this is my template here that I use for all my meeting notes. We'll set this as the default for all views. And if I'm creating a new meeting note, here we go. I think it should, hopefully it opens up. Here we go. Here's my template here. You know, I'll say project call, for example, with Liam. Here's some context. I start writing my notes here, blah, 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 blah. You might even like upload transcript or summary or whatever. But I just use this pretty basic template as well for all my meetings in Notion. So, you know, if you like with my, you know, initial calls or initial mentoring sessions or whatever, you'd have templates for all of them to tick off the same things every single time. So yeah, meeting notes can be a cool database to use. Another database, which is worth thinking about, whoops, I need to make a database here, is projects. So you might, again, I don't think Notion can kind of do anything. I don't really use it a lot for projects, just again, because it's kind of just me. I don't really have too much to track. But let's, where's my little, turn this into a page. But this is where, again, and this is where we're getting like even beyond these three databases. You might have projects here. How do I do? Is there a project icon? Clipboard. There we go. Projects. That'll do. And you can have a project. Again, we're getting this is where things can start to get wild. We can have a project linked to. You could do contacts if you want to. But you could have maybe just deals. I don't know. But again, this is where it gets confusing. Where you're like, okay, I'm going to track all my projects in Notion. What do I link them to? Do I link them to a deal? Do I link them to do I link them to contacts as well? And do I even link them to, and to the company? And again, now we're getting like absolutely insane. We're doing like too much stuff. So again, this is where like, for me, I don't bother with this because this is just getting way too much. But you might have, I don't know, service review as a project that I'm doing for this. Again, you might not have this and just delete this and just track it all on the deal itself, for example. But I do some projects here and there as well. So that's one thing. Another database which can be useful, which I actually use, is I track all my time on Notion. So Notion is where my bookkeeper bills from, basically. So you might have, time logs as an example. This is where we're talking about, hey, can we replace Sploce one day, basically? So essentially all Sploce is linked databases. You have a client, you have appointments linked, cases linked, contacts linked, all that sort of thing. This is what most software platforms are, just a series of linked databases and all linking together, and it becomes a big mess anyway. But yeah, you might have time logs as a database, which I use. And again, I'll just track my, let's go, clock here. And yeah, I'll just track, like I'll link it to a client or a company, my relation to a company. Where's companies? Oh, it's down further. To a company, and again, my bookkeeper just who's my wife, God bless her. She'll just come in every Monday, and she looks at all my time logs, and she'll see like, my hours, for example, and I'll say, I did a workshop prep as an example for Esther's Health. I did 1.5 hours, and then she'll just invoice for this basically. That's a subscription, off we go type thing. So again, we're basically recreating my Notion database. I'm looking at on another screen over there. And then the thing you can do in Notion, which I sort of mentioned before, which I don't do, you can also add tasks to Notion if you want to as well. So personally, I think it's a bit clunky for task management, Notion. So I don't use it for task management because again, it can do anything, which is great, but it's not really set up for it. So I actually prefer to use Todoist for tasks. I would highly recommend that to anyone who is looking for like a simple task management platform. Same thing, it's also free. So again, that's where for me it's okay because it's just solo. If you had 15 people on Notion, you might want their actual tasks assigned to projects and things within Notion, which I won't go into. But yeah, I like Todoist just for like a personal to-do list and task because maybe, again, not the purpose of this webinar, but the cool thing about Todoist is it's got, I don't know the word for it, it's got like plain language where you can type something in. So I can say, do this Monday for Estes, and that will add a task on Monday for Estes Health and assign it to a project, for example. So it's got this like plain language stuff. Or I can say, put bins out, tomorrow, and that will put a task for me to put the bins out tomorrow, right? So you can just type things in quickly. Notion can't really do things like that. So anyway, that's why I use Todoist for tasks. But again, you could easily add a task database here. Any quick question about some of these other databases? Otherwise, we're going to sort of wrap this up a little bit and make a dashboard of some of these things.
Yeah, dashboard would be awesome.
Yeah, cool. All right, let's go make a, we'll just call it CRM dashboard as an example. So sort of tying this all in together. So again, all these things here, these are our, I should delete this. These are our locked down databases. You shouldn't touch them. No one, if you're sharing with a team and so on, no one has access to this. This is just like the master database because if you delete this, it's gone. Whereas if I link to, if I go to a linked view of my deals database, for example, if I delete this by accident, you have a rogue staff member who's grumpy or whatever, it's still going to exist in the database here. So yeah, just good practice for Notion is always try use linked views of databases. So let's make a cool dashboard, hey. And again, I'd like to know. Again, I don't have a plan for this, so we'll try and make some things here. So if I'm making a dashboard, I'll usually make 2 columns as an example, and we'll do like a little navigation over here on the left hand side or something. So let's make a view of our data source. Let's go to our deals database, and I want to see basically all my follow-ups that are due. Or maybe I go to, I want a table. I just want to see when my follow-ups are due this week. And I can, let me hide this. How do I hide this little, we'll just leave this for now. And I can say follow-ups due this week as an example. And then drag this over here. If it pops up, where's my columns gone? Sometimes this dragging a bit funny on a Notion. Let me do 2 columns again. Follow-ups due this week. Over here. Drag this over here. And then I have here are all my, here are my deals with my follow-ups due this week. And then I might also make over here, I might make a linked view. I can have a view of my, companies as an example. And I might want to see, again, you can just have a list of all of them here. Or I might have let's make a chart view. The charts in Notion can be pretty cool. And I can say, I want to see how I change this setting? It's like a pie chart of what, where all the companies I work with are from. I have, 4 in WA, or 3, I have 4 total, 2 in WA, 1 over here, for example. And again, you might have this with what are all the, what deal stages do I have? Let's make one of them. I'll just duplicate this deals database. Anything else anyone would think of would be useful in a dashboard? I'll just make this one here in a sec. Oh, I've already used my 1 free chart. I can't make any more. Sorry. If you want to do more charts, you need to pay for it. So, yeah, let me delete this one. We'll do this one. This one might be more interesting. I don't know if it needs to. Yeah, we'll leave this chart here. So then, if you sort of got your main,
I'll just think of the follow up as well of like how many companies have you followed up with in the last week or month or something like that as a personal sort of metric.
Yeah,
this is so cool.
That would be cool. You can do things like that. So then what I often do in CRMs for clients and things like this, kind of have this like little navigation thing over here where you might have, as an example, you might have views over here. And this is where you can start linking to pages, or I might call it, database as an example. And they probably should have their own separate pages, but you can start linking to, contacts, companies, deals, for example. So it's like your own sort of little navigation bar over here. And then you click on this, it takes you to the database, which again, probably should be its own page. And again, we're sort of getting beyond the scope of this webinar. And then another cool thing I like to add in a dashboard or sort of homepage view or something like that is, we might call it quick add. Let me do this one here. Where something cool, I'll show you guys quickly in Notion before we finish up with these buttons here, where I might say add contact, for example. I'll change my little icon here to be contact. And basically when this button is clicked, do this, add a page to the contacts database. And then you can set some, you can set some defaults, properties, and all sorts of things to it. It normally looks a bit wider than this. I'm just doing it in this call out block here. The other thing too is if you want to add this little quick add button, is you want to open this. You then want to open this up in you want to open up this page added section in Centerpeak, for example, because if you don't add this step here, it'll just create it and the action is done. Whereas now if we go to this quick add contact thing here we go. We get add our contact. We get Susie Smith here from Sunnyvale Aged Care. Here's her email, blah, blah, blah. We then go back to our, I should have their own pages over here. We go back to the contacts database. Sorry, Susie Smith is, she's not active. She's nothing. So here we go. Susie Smith is here. I need to figure out I can't remember how to do this default setting. So anyway, there's a way to somehow set this so it calculates everyone who's added is automatically active, for example. But yeah, then we have our dashboard here. It's kind of like the amalgamation of all this, where you can have, here's links to all our databases. Here's some things we want to track. Here's some follow-ups that are due. We can add contacts, add companies, all that sort of thing. And you can sort of, again, play around and track, this is just a very, 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 not so basic, but this is just a starting point, to be honest, of, again, a lot of this might be way overkill for where you guys are at. You might just need a companies and contacts database. You might want to add the third layer of deals on top of that too. And then you might want to start adding in other things like notes, projects, time logs, tasks, whatever it may be. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Again, we've done all this on a free Notion account, right? Which is pretty awesome too. Again, if you upgrade, you can get more charts and automations and AI and things like that. So it could be worth it. But yeah, pretty cool for a free platform to make what can be a whole function in CRM. So again, I wasn't even paying for Notion for like 6 months, and Todoist too. They're both phenomenal for free. So I will leave it there. If you guys have any questions or thoughts or comments or whatever it may be after this, feel free to send me an email. Here's my link to if anyone wants help building out their Notion. Again, happy to help out. Like, we sort of just scratched the surface here, to be honest. Again, it's a quick and probably overwhelming overview of some of this stuff. It's actually diving in and doing it with your specific business. You can come up with sometimes there can be more questions than answers, to be honest. So yeah, I'll leave it there. Thanks everyone for watching. And maybe the more people get converted to Notion, the better, to be honest. We need more Notion power users. Thanks everyone.